Recently, Confucianism has been talked around. So I figured I might as well give some insight on it before I explain why it's been resurfaced recently. Confucianism was founded by a person called Confucius, who wrote the text called the Acolytes. They had a code of harmony, which was that if humans would act in harmony with the universe, then their own affairs would prosper. They also had something called the filial penalty, which is respecting for older people like your mom, your dad, and your grandparents. They also had a symbol called yin and yang, something that is very popular even in today's Japanese and Chinese culture. Last but not least, they also had basic beliefs, which is that they had two elements that stand out in the Confucianism view of Tao, which is called Wei, and its meaning is duty and humanity. The concept of the concept of duty meant that people had to subordinate their own interests to the broader needs of the family and community. Humanity meant the compassion and empathy for others. Yai was honesty and uprightness, while Wai was maybe broken down into Zhao, doing one's best consciously, loyally, and last but not least, Shu, which represents altruism, consideration for others, and Confucius' early vision of the Golden Rule. What you don't want yourself, don't do to others. Which is, and also one final note, Zai meant knowledge. Now then, another thing I wanted to mention is the reason why this has been resurfacing recently is that a lot of Confucianism relates to our own everyday lives. For example, your mother and your father are similar to the ruler. You must show respect to them like how the ruler must show respect to you. And also similar to the final penalty, you must respect your elders who also helped, or your ancestor who also helped found said family of which gave you birth. Second, we're going to talk about is something that a lot of anarchists have been trying to resurface, and it's called Taoism. The founder of Taoism is called Lao Tzu. He wrote a text that is called, or it's also called The Way of Tao. The symbol is Tao J and Butaka. The basic beliefs are to go with the flow, more or less, not to interfere with natural order. If you don't want your house to be robbed by robbers, do not fill it with gold and jade. Wealth, rank, ignorance add up to ruin, and it's surely 2 and 2 are 4. The government rule in Taoism, there really wasn't much of one. Taoism was basically an example of anarchism that a lot of people seem to think is a good idea, despite the fact that it clearly isn't. And there is a third thing that happened, which is legalism. Now, legalism actually came into power because of said Taoism. Because whenever you take a government out of power, there's always a political gap that has to fill that rule. And usually it's a power vacuum that leads to an emperor. That's a dictator. That's a total jerk. Anyhow, legalism was founded by Sheng Yang, who formed the basic ideologies for legalism. But the first person to ever actually put these ideals into reality was the Qin dynasty, who ruled from 2022 to 207 BCE. And his ideologies was based off of a Han Fezhu known as the founder. The famous emperor was, as I previously just mentioned, Qin Shi Huang. And some of the basic beliefs for legalism is that a theory of autocracy, centralized rule, and harsh penalties. And the role of the government in legalism was basically similar to somewhat communism, not entirely though. Here's why. It's because the legalist associated government is by a system of laws that rigidly prescribe punishments and rewards for specific behaviors. They stress the direction of all human activity toward the goal of increasing power for the ruler and the state. This is similar to communism in the fact that everyone has to be equally treated, but unlike communism, it also pulls out harsher punishments and there's a lot less rewards. And this relates to our common world in the form of, well, most of the time, those power vacuums led by people who believe in Taoism or anarchism, and usually filling that vacuum with a dictator. I mean, look what happened with the Vietnam War. And as always, I'll see you next time.